Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of The Snake Pit. I'm your host, Son of Bat, and tonight I'll be talking about Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, also known as The Living Dead at Manchester Morgue and Don't Open the Window. Apparently, when this movie came out in 1974, it had about 16 different titles. One other example I can give is Do Not Profane the Sleep of the Dead. This is what I like to call a cross-collaboration movie. What I mean by that is it's kind of a Spanish zombie movie, it's kind of an Italian zombie movie, and it's kind of an English zombie movie. Of course, the director and some of the production companies are Spanish, and then some of the production companies are Italian, yet the whole movie is filmed in England. So it's kind of confusing. So to alleviate some of the headache and the confusion there, we'll just say it's a Euro zombie movie. Very cool little movie. It's considered a post Night of the Living Dead, pre-Dawn of the Dead zombie movie, which I do agree with, because Romero did lay the groundwork for what zombie movies would be from 68 onward. However, this movie did some things that I think maybe Dawn of the Dead maybe got some inspiration from, but I know certainly the greater scope of Euro zombie movies got inspiration from this. So to me, while I do agree that it is a post-night, pre-dawn movie, I like to think of this more as a precursor to the Euro zombie boom that would come into the mid-late 80s, with directors like Fulci and Mattei and shit like that. But for all intents and purposes, this is just a great zombie movie. It's, a cult classic. I don't really know about underrated. I know more people are aware of it now than they were about like 10 years or so ago. But this is a really cool movie. Highly recommend it to zombie fans and horror fans, 70s horror fans specifically. The DVD was put out by Blue Underground, and they never fuck around. All their releases, or at least all the ones I own by them, are pretty fucking awesome. They can be a little pricey, but if you want, a good quality cut of a horror movie from the 70s or 80s, they're the ones to go to, because some companies, and I don't mean to company bash or whatever, but you get your companies like Code Red, and every so often you watch one of their movies and the sound quality could dip or the picture quality could be shit. Blue Underground always fucking delivers. This DVD we're looking at in the thumbnail is actually the single disc release. I think it's the first version they put out, of course under the title Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. Then they re-released it on a 2-disc special edition with the Living Dead at Manchester Morgue title. And little side note, I actually did have that 2-disc version of the DVD. Clearly not anymore, as you can see in the thumbnail here. The reason why was I believe it was a corrupted or scratched up disc, so the movie didn't work. From what I remember, all it really was, the only difference between the two is the 2-disc version has way more special features, interviews with the director, and I think maybe the cast, but I'm not 100% sure. I mean, this version though, the 1-disc, is perfectly fine. It's obviously going to be a little bit cheaper because it is 1 disc, and but again, Blue Underground out of print DVDs, so cheaper, I air quote with my fingers because it could be expensive now. I really don't know. I got this maybe about 10 years ago, but realistically, it doesn't matter what version you have, because the final film on both versions of the DVD are uncut. Everything is there. It's a Blue Underground release, so the audio is nice, the picture's nice. Again, it doesn't really matter which version you get. I think the single disc might be easier to get a hold of, though. I know there's a video store right across the street from me that actually has this movie. So any of you that know me, that live in the area, that know the video store I'm talking about, you better go pick that shit up before it's gone, because Blue Underground DVDs for less than $20, that's a fucking steal, bud. But anyway, before I get into more of the finer details and even the zombies in this movie, I guess I might as well just go over some of the technical specs and the plot. I'm going to try not to spoil very much, because if I'm going on the assumption that this is still considered a cult classic or an underground zombie movie, I really don't want to spoil it for you guys. I want you to kind of experience it, for the first time in a very fresh way, because this is a very, very cool fucking movie. So here we go. Directed by George Grau, written by Sandro Contaniza and Marcello Cosca, produced by Edmondo Amanti, starring Christina Galbo, Ray Lovelock, and Arthur Kennedy, just to name a few. Cinematography by Francisco Sempre, edited by Domingo Garcia and Vincenzo Tomasi. Music by Giuliano Sorgini. Production company Star Films SA for Spain and Flamina Produzioni Cinematografici in Italy. I hope I said that right. Distributed by Muricino Films SA in Spain and Fida Cinematografica in Italy. And released on November 28th, 1974 in Italy and October 20th, 1975 in Spain with a runtime of 93 minutes. I couldn't find an exact budget or box office return, but this movie is a cult classic, so I can't imagine it made a crazy amount of money back, but that really doesn't matter. This movie still kicks fucking ass. And of course, the language used is English. However, I've heard some of the actors were dubbed and redubbed in this movie, like I believe Ray Lovelock's character George was dubbed and overdubbed or whatever, but you know, with some of these 70s, 80s movies, the dubs can really take away, kind of makes them a little cheesy or a little goofy. This is one of those movies where the dub really doesn't make a difference. If you're trying to look for it, you'll kind of see it, but it really doesn't affect the movie at all, which is pretty nice. And again, it kind of makes sense that this movie would be in English as opposed to Spanish or Italian because the whole movie does take place in England. But anyway, I'm going to try to spoil as little as possible when it comes to the plot of this movie. To me, the only way you could really spoil a zombie movie is by giving away if any crucial characters die or get turned into zombies. Also, I think with these cult movies, it's better to see them with a fresh set of eyes. I think, a lot of the video nasty or cult Euro horror movies, people know about them because of like the really controversial or gory scenes. So when they end up watching these movies, they just wait for those one or two scenes to show up without actually taking in the whole movie. So I'm going to do my best to try to limit that because I do believe this is one of those better ones. It's, it's an exploitation movie, but it's a really good one. And I'd really hate to, spoil the story to anyone or set people up just for the gore, because how this movie plays out is there is gore and there is violence in it, but the pacing, it's really a suspense movie. It's a zombie movie, but it's got a lot of suspense and a lot of atmosphere. And if you're going in expecting I always bring this one back. If you're expecting Dawn of the Dead, kind of like an action zombie romp, it's not really like that. It's kind of like Night of the Living Dead in some respects. It's kind of got a slow burn to it. And to be honest, the plot is a little convoluted. So heads up, I might spoil a couple things inadvertently, but it is what it is. There's your one and only warning. So without further ado, here's the plot of Let Sleeping Corpses Lie. Essentially, the story is about this beatnik named George who's on his way up to the Lake District for a party at his new house. He never makes it to the party, though, because his bike ends up getting totaled by our other protagonist named Edna at the petrol station. And while he leaves the bike at the station to get repaired, he requests that Edna drive him to his house as a form of payback, for her destroying his bike. She agrees, but she tells him that she's going to have to leave him short distance away from where he actually needs to go because she's got to turn off to Southgate and see her sister Katie. Her sister Katie is basically an active heroin addict who, with the help of her husband Martin and the sister Edna, are trying to get her, committed to a hospital, like a rehab clinic. So that's why she can't drop George off at his house, to which he tells her, look, how about I drive you to your sister's place, I take the car to the place I gotta go, and in the morning you come pick it up. Kind of convoluted, but if I were to go even into more details, it's even more convoluted than that. Essentially, they hit a dead end looking for Katie's house, and George goes off and he finds a farm where the Ministry of Agriculture and a couple farmers are using this weird science fiction-y looking device. And apparently what it does is it emits off ultrasonic radiation to kill insects and parasites to ensure a good vegetable and fruit harvest. Little do they know that's what causes the zombies in this movie. And then the other end where Edna goes leads off to a cemetery where she's attacked, kind of like Barbara in the original Night of the Living Dead, by what I call the tramp zombie or the homeless zombie. And, they eventually make it up to Katie and Martin's house. But before they do, Martin's actually murdered by the tramp zombie while he's taking photographs by the lakeside. Police come up and they immediately think Katie, George, and Edna have something to do with it because they're hippie beatnik looking types, it pretty much treats them like they're Charlie Manson or like a bunch of Satanists and shit. So he basically tells Katie she's got to stay at the house for more interrogation, and then George and Edna have to stay at a hotel in the local town, just to wait until they're interrogated or until the case blows over. while they're there, they get some photos developed to try to prove Katie's innocence, to show that, like, Martin was attacked by somebody, like, because there's no way that Martin was killed by this, like, meek little heroin addict, because she's a fairly small girl, plus, like, from the drugs she would have been weaker. The police even make mention that Martin's chest was completely caved in, so he was, like, beaten to shit. And then, essentially the movie, it like becomes a zombie movie. It starts off as kind of like a police procedural mystery, and then it really becomes a zombie movie in the last like 20 or so minutes. There's two major action set pieces for the zombie attacks. One of them is the cemetery, which the whole scene in the cemetery is cool. My favorite part is when they're in like the crypt underneath the church, and George is trying to escape the reanimated dead, and he goes through one of these like stone coffin, I guess, containers, and it takes him outside through a freshly dug grave. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a really cool scene. The way the zombies are reanimated in this movie are pretty crazy. It's not like typical Romero shit. I mean, there's at least one person who gets scratched and turned into a zombie from what I remember, but essentially it's just if you die and you're in the area where this radiation is seeping around, you're going to get reanimated. I mean, even some babies in incubators at the hospital near the end of the movie start showing signs of being zombies, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, that leads me into the second action set piece, which is like the Manchester morgue, the hospital. Very cool fucking shit. I mean, spoiler alerts here, but some really gory kills. The zombies really showcase how terrifying they are in this movie. They're pretty smart. I mean, they can set up ambushes. There's one zombie that feigns being dead, gets put into like the meat locker ice truck, driven to the morgue, and then once he's at the morgue, he wakes up and kills people. So they're kind of smart in this movie. They can use weapons every now and again. Like the tramp zombie literally rips a fucking stone crucifix out of the ground, so they got strength on them. They don't really bite, like Romero zombies do, but they strangle, they bludgeon, they sometimes use weapons, but the main thing they do that's like absolutely horrifying is they straight up rip your guts out. And I could be wrong, but I do believe this might be one of the first zombie movies that actually depicts them ripping people's fucking guts out and instantly feasting on them. Who knows, maybe George saw this movie and took inspiration and added that, because I know in Dawn of the Dead there's that scene when the bikers are in the mall and that one guy gets like totally eviscerated. But apparently, I could be wrong, apparently this movie Let Sleeping Corpses Lie was the first one to do that. There's a nurse who gets like her tit and her guts ripped out at the same time. There's a doctor who's trying to defend himself with an axe. Zombie grabs the axe out of his hand and like just buries it in his fucking head like on one swing. Like, it is brutal. They're smart, they're efficient, and they're hard to kill. Like, you can't just shoot them in the head to kill them. There's a scene at the church when the one police officer who starts to believe George and Edna kind of barricades himself in the church with them, and he starts blasting off rifle rounds. He shoots this one woman zombie in the head, and she doesn't die. The only way to kill them is through fire. So if you don't have any kerosene or matches or anything like that, you are totally fucked. Kind of like, kind of made me think of the zombies from Return of the Living Dead, borderline unkillable, but with the zombies, like, that's what they should be at the end of the day, like unkillable. The Romero zombies, and therefore later movies inspired by them, kind of gave us like a safe switch with shoot them in the head. Like, most zombie movies, you hit them in the head, they're fucking good. And I think that's why a lot of them aren't that scary, because they're pretty easy to deal with. Whereas in Return of the Living Dead, Let Sleeping Corpses Lie, like, it takes a lot more than just shooting them to kill them. Like, you gotta have fucking the means to do so, or else you're gonna get overrun. And again, they're strong as fuck, man. If a group of them don't get you and rip you to pieces, one can do it, bro. One can hit you with a fucking tombstone and you're done, or strangle you to death. Like, pretty intense shit. And actually, I do know that in this, maybe it's because I've been playing this game for like 2 months straight. That's why I constantly think about it. But the zombies in this made me think about the walkers from Dead Rising. There's a couple reasons why. One, the glowing red eyes, because the zombies in this do have like piercing red fucking like eyes and shit. The other is the fact that they can, wield weapons, not like in fucking Land of the Dead where they're like wielding an AUG and shit, like stupid shit like that, but like, knives, bludgeon weapons. They're a little faster. They don't run, but they don't necessarily like slowly shamble. They've got some speed to them, so if you're not expecting it, you're fucked. Kind of like in Dead Rising, where if you're not expecting it, one will lunge at you super fast, and they've got some strength. They can bring you to the ground. So this movie's kind of terrifying for that, man. You like watch it and you're like, yo, these zombies are like a serious threat, man. Like, as much as I love the Romero ones, like, you can really go to town with the hypotheticals. Like, you can be like, all right, I just barricade myself in a house. I'd like cut off the stairs, get enough bullets and shit. This one, you can't really think about that. It's like, yo, do I have a source of fire around me? And if not, I got to just keep fucking running. Because, yeah, it is crazy. Like, again, very terrifying zombies in this movie. Very well made. The cinematography is fucking great. The atmosphere is also amazing. Wouldn't recommend watching this in a lighted room in the daytime because it is very visually dark, so you're not going to make out a lot of it unless you're watching, this movie in a pitch black room. But hey, it's a fucking horror movie. You should be watching it in a pitch black room. I mean, what is that old saying? It's like, shut off your lights, lock your doors, and bar your windows. But yeah, no, honestly, this movie, it looks amazing still to this day. It is really creepy. The zombies are, like I went off just now, terrifying as fuck. If I were to rate this movie on a scale from 1 to 10, I mean, it's going to be unoriginal because I've been doing this with the last few reviews. But hey, I guess everything I've been picking I like. I'd probably have to give this a 9.5 or a 10. The only reason why I'd give it a 9.5 is in the middle where it's like kind of like a police procedural. It drags a little bit. I do wish there was like, a couple more zombies or maybe more of an extended sequence at the hospital or, if it went into the town after the hospital or whatever. It's just this movie left me wanting more. And again, there are a couple scenes where it kind of like, drags a little bit. But other than that, like, it's a really solid movie. When it hits, it definitely fucking hits. The gore is fucking great. Yeah, definitely a 9.5, solid 9.5. Highly recommend this movie to anyone who's a fan of like, zombie movies, Romero zombie movies, Euro zombie movies. This movie's got it all. It's really good. Great transfer from Blue Underground. All their DVDs are fucking amazing. I highly recommend if you find that, you pick it up instantly. That goes for any release by Blue Underground, whether it be horror, gangster, western, action, erotica. They always put out really good shit. Very good transfers. I am pleased to have this movie. I'm also pleased that I got to share it with you guys. Like I said, I don't know how accurate this is, but I don't see a lot of people talk about this movie or cover it. It's definitely a cult movie, so I'm glad to have given it more exposure and hopefully got more people into seeing it, because again, this is one of the better zombie movies from the 70s and 80s. It's well made. It doesn't feel cheap, or it's exploitive with its gore and stuff, but it doesn't feel like just sleaze like garbage. This movie's got a lot going for it. It's very interesting, and yeah, if you guys like this review and want to see more zombie ones, either American zombies or Euro zombie movies, I got a fuck ton of them, and I'll be happy to do them. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back to you with either an Ellis movie or a zombie movie or just something generally fucked up. You know how it is here at the Snake Pit. Peace!